T L.
It's time!
W
T L.
I think we got a show. Oh yeah, we got a show.
W
T L.
And welcome back, everybody, to WTL. You know what that stands for. Where's the Line? Nebraska's first and only sports betting show. I'm your host, Andy Klesson, joined by
Jabron.
the Parlay Founder.
You got it. We're back. We're back.
We're back, and I'm telling you what, spring is in the air.
Yeah.
March. We I think we withstood the last big time snow blast.
Yeah,
right.
We're over that. It's time for madness, not more snow.
Sadness.
Snow Winter sadness is over. Madness has started.
Sadness is over. Madness is here.
There we go.
And right now is a real fun time leading up to the big dance.
Yeah.
The NCAA tournament. That is the conference tournaments.
Yeah.
that are currently underway.
Yeah.
And we got our picks, some of our lines that we like, just about each and every one of these big conferences. And we're going to spend a little time on some of these conferences. And I think we need to start with the Big East.
The Big E. Yeah, Andy, I love the Big East this year. A couple teams that can really go far in March Madness, but we'll just start with some of the Thursday matchups like you talked about. And just backtracking a little bit on that, Andy, UConn won its first outright Big East regular season tournament in 25 seasons. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
It's really shocking because the school has won 5 national titles in that span.
Yeah.
But obviously the Huskies are the odds-on favorite to win this tournament at a minus 140 right now, Andy. But not far behind them. Our boys in Omaha, Creighton at a plus 375 and Marquette at a plus 500. Something to monitor right off the bat with Marquette is their point guard, Tyler Kolek. Missed the few final games of the season, so make sure you're looking at his game time status going into Marquette's game on Thursday. But if Marquette is at full strength, I think they could be a top challenger in this, obviously, Andy. The other thing you got to look at with this is the Big East has 3 bubble teams heading into this week with St. John's, Villanova, and Seton Hall.
Yeah, and the Big East is one of those conferences that get the benefit of the doubt, so I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 of those teams get in, where some of your Mountain West teams might get snubbed, some of your Big Ten teams might even get snubbed.
Yeah.
We've seen that before, but the Big East, give them their dues, give them their flowers. They perform well when the tournament season rolls around. UConn is a perfect example of that, winning their first outright conference regular season in 25 years.
Yeah,
but
winning national titles.
But winning 5 national titles before
winning the Big East.
Their regular season. So they were just one of those teams, one of those programs
they get hot.
They turn it on, kind of like UCLA is a tournament team.
Yeah, for sure.
It just feels like the Big East is full of tournament teams, and UConn's at the top of that. So not only are they your odds-on favorite at a minus 140, minus 135 in some books to win the Big East tournament, they're also your odds-on favorite to win the whole dang thing.
For sure. And you don't get much value on them right now to win the big dance, Andy.
No.
But so we're just talking Thursday game. They're matched up against Xavier at 11 a.m. FS1. The line on that game is minus 15.5. So the bookmakers don't really think that UConn is going to have troubles with Xavier.
No,
Xavier, they're not that big of a pushover in the Big East. They're 16 and 16 on the year, 9-11 in the Big East. With such a stacked conference, I think they put together a pretty good year.
Sure.
But just got the drawing of UConn in this round at Madison Square Garden. So I do believe UConn rolls tomorrow. If we want to move on to a really good matchup tomorrow that should, flake out some of these sleeper picks, good picks, is St. John's versus Seton Hall, which is a very close one at St. John's at minus 4.5 tomorrow.
Minus 4.5. And this, once again, you're talking about 2 teams that stack up, that know each other very well.
Yeah.
That's what makes these tournament games so much fun, and also very, very difficult to pick here. I really don't know which way I would want to lean on this one, because there's a lot of things about both these teams that I like. I mean, I've seen both of them play Creighton twice each this season. I came away thinking, okay, on any given night, they could kind of handed to Creighton.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Andy. St. John's right now is on a 5-win winning streak, Creighton being one of those teams. But yeah,
St. John's a trendy pick right now. They're
sure.
a big-time dark horse pick to win this tournament.
I would say that they are the most overall sleeper pick to win this tournament, just coming in with that 5-game winning streak, Andy.
Plus 900. I like that.
Yeah, plus 900. You got to like those odds, but Seton Hall, like we said, they're on a 2-game winning streak, but you have to look at their past 5. They have Creighton and UConn in there. Didn't perform well in either of those, so that's the reason you see money going in on St. John's. Why they're the 4.5-point favorite.
Think they could survive this game and then roll the dice.
Yeah, no, I do believe the Red Storm is the way to go in Madison Square Garden on Thursday. So give me the Red Storm. I think they take care of Seton Hall, and once St. John's wins this game, I believe they're a lock for the NCAA tournament as well, just with this win over Seton Hall.
Yeah, forget about the bubble talk. They're just the Red Storm. Red Storm!
Red Storm!
they're going to be in. Do we want to move on to Blue Jays?
Let's do the Blue Jays.
Okay, they're at a plus 375 to take down this tournament, and I haven't heard much chatter whatsoever about them winning this tournament, about them being a dark horse, any of that, and I think that serves Creighton very well. I think they play best, they just perform the best when they're kind of an afterthought. They're just kind of off the radar a little bit. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
But even this season when they're coming in top 10, top 5 ranked team, Mountain West just took it to them.
Yeah, for sure, Andy.
In that first part of the season.
Yep.
Then they rebounded and put together a really nice season. But I just like where this is at, where people are actually picking St. John's to win the Big East above Creighton right now, which is ludicrous. That is crazy.
That is crazy, Andy. And like you said, matched up against Providence tomorrow. Creighton, 8th in the nation. They are a 7.5-point favorite today, Thursday, against Providence. That starts at 6 p.m. on FS1. Yeah, and I love it. You're looking down ESPN, CBS, all the predictors and all that kind of stuff. Not one national writer has Creighton winning this tournament, and I think it's
they're not the darlings anymore.
I think that's absolutely ludicrous. Like you said, plus 375 for a team like Creighton, a team that just beat UConn, a team that is flying on. They just beat Marquette, Seton Hall, and Villanova.
They're predicted to be a number 2 seed in the tournament.
Exactly.
They're the number 2 seed in the Big East tournament. Yep, they're getting overlooked. Just think I think the shine has wore off, and all the writers have talked about Baylor Scheinman. They all talked about Cockburn. Oh, defensive player of the year for the 3rd year in a row. Like, how boring is that?
Yeah, how boring is that? I hate that.
Up for national defensive player of the year as well, which he's got a pretty good case to be made there.
Yeah.
Providence. Now, a reason for pause here. They're the 7 seed, but this is a stacked conference. We already mentioned that. They're 13-1 against the spread this season.
Yeah.
That's a little bit better than Creighton.
Definitely better than Creighton.
17-14.
Yeah.
Against the spread this season.
Very good for Providence. Like you said, we split games against them this year. Mm-hmm. Home and away. The only thing that I see as kind of an outlier is that at Providence, we did take them to overtime, and we just kind of ran out of gas. Shireman did have 27. Shireman did have 27 against them. I think that is probably lingering with the Blue Jays a little bit, knowing that they should beat teams like that, even on the road. So I like them tomorrow. I do like even to cover this. I think the Creighton Blue Jays come out stroking tomorrow, hitting long shots, and playing really, really tough defense on this Providence team. So give me the Jays minus 7.5 to move on to the second round.
All three, the big 3 for Creighton, have all played at Madison Square Garden, which is where the Big East tournament's at, the mecca of basketball.
The mecca.
And they've all performed well there. Trey Alexander, I believe he is clicking. He might be playing his best basketball of the season. Their point guard is finally coming along.
Yeah, he is.
I like that, transfer in from Utah.
Yeah.
Baylor Shireman had one off game, but guess what? They beat UConn during his off game.
They beat UConn during his off game.
So I think he's going to be fired up. And Kalkbrenner, like we mentioned, already up for all these Defensive Player of the Year awards.
Yeah.
And guess what? Travels well to a conference tournament style of game. Defense. So I like Creighton coming out the chute here, firing in this first round, their first game anyway, matchup of the Big East tournament. So, I'm going to take them to cover here.
Yeah, Andy, and the over-under on this game is 141.5, Andy. I believe that this soars over as well. Last game that we played Providence, it did go into overtime, but we put
91-87.
91-87. That flies way over that. So I believe this happens. I believe the over is a very safe play for this game, especially the way that Creighton is shooting the ball. Give me Creighton. Give me the over. And, we'll see you in the next round.
All right, we're going over it. Is there any other little tidbit of the Big East you want to touch on?
No, like I said, when you're talking about Marquette, Villanova, you kind of just got to, tiptoe around it a little bit. Marquette, like you said, plus 500. You really have to. Really have to look at those injuries. I think they might kind of save these guys and wait till March Madness. They're an automatic bid, no matter what. They're in the tournament.
That's what they're doing right now.
Not an automatic bid, but they are in the tournament. They are lock. So I don't know how hard they're going to press these guys until they get to the big dance. So I'm kind of tiptoeing around those two right now.
Yeah.
But give me Creighton tomorrow. Give me St. John's and give me UConn, and then we'll see you in the next round.
All right, I think St. John's is your biggest reach right there.
Yeah, no doubt.
For that opening round. All right, well, let's take a minute to recognize one of our fabulous partners, and that is the Stock and Rod Company, an outdoor lifestyle brand for those seeking adventure. Whether it's hunting, fishing, hiking, they got you covered. Visit stockandrod.com to get your wild game on. Don't go anywhere. This is WTL. And welcome back, everybody, to WTL. Where's the line? Nebraska's first and only sports betting show. I'm your host, Andy Klassen, and I'm joined by
Jabron.
the Parlay Pounder.
Yes, sir. We're back.
Yes, we are, and we are talking conference tournaments,
Yeah.
NCAA basketball. March Madness is upon us.
Yeah.
Talked a little Big East. Now we absolutely have to get into the Big Ten.
The Big Ten. Love it.
And the Huskers, you better believe it, they have punched their ticket, but they're looking to work on their seeding in the tournament. Maybe still a spot or two. I'm seeing a lot of bracketologists have them as, an 8 or a 9 seed?
Yeah, right now we are a 9 seed, Andy. And, if we get a win, especially somebody against, like, Indiana or somebody even upper echelon in that, we can really improve that status. So that is what the Huskers are here to do.
I think it helps that we're on that side of the bracket with Illinois and Indiana.
No doubt.
Not on the Purdue side of things.
Exactly.
Maybe that would be better. But anyway, I would rather face off Purdue in the championship game. Give me the 2 seed, the 3 or 4, the 2 or 4 seed before that point.
No doubt.
The Huskers are your overall 3 seed right now, and they're actually gaining a little bit of a sleeper pick, dark horse recognition. Let me see here. Kyle Boone, senior staff writer for CBS Sportsline.
There you go.
Actually has them as his sleeper pick over Michigan State, Ohio State, and Illinois. So how about that?
No,
we'll take it.
You got to love that, Andy. And like you said, Nebraska over the past month has been very impressive.
Yeah.
And the Big Ten has showed it, giving our coach, the old Fred Hoiberg, Coach of the Year in the Big Ten, which is very awesome for us.
Yep.
And then Keisei Tamanaga putting up 30 points against Michigan, slid him all the way into second team All Big Ten, which is very, very good for, Casey, who's, not a do-it-all player, but a shooter. But you can see how he can score points, motivate the crowd, and get people into it. They slid him all the way up to second team, which is very awesome.
No, he's a huge X factor. And if you've ever been to a game at Pinnacle Bank Arena and he splashes in a 3, the energy that creates.
It's crazy.
And I was just reading on that national USA Today.
Yeah.
They just kind of give you a brief 30,000-foot view of things, you know, so they just kind of breeze over it a lot. But they actually have Casey as one of the top 5 players to watch in the Big Ten tournament.
I'm sure he has to be. He has to be.
You got to love the recognition there. And along with just sports writers and talking heads, and the odds makers are giving Nebraska the respect as well. Because right now, Purdue is your overall favorite to win the Big Ten tournament, plus 100. So not really good odds, right?
No.
Illinois is right behind them at a plus 280. That's where you could maybe have some value. Nebraska is sitting in the 3-hole at plus 750. That's your third best odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten tournament is Nebraska.
Yeah.
at nearly a plus 1,000.
No, I love the value that Nebraska has, especially that we have a win over Purdue, so we know that we can do it. Obviously, these are long shot odds. The two that I like, obviously, Andy, are Nebraska at plus 750, who we know can beat everybody in this tournament.
Done it.
And the other one that I really like, Andy, is right below them, Michigan State at plus 1,100.
Yeah, Michigan State's looks like they're heading towards their 26th consecutive NCAA tournament. A lot of bracketologists and writers already are shooing them in. I believe they are going to make it. Big Ten, as of right now, looks like they have 6 slated into the tournament, with a couple teams on the outside looking in, such as Iowa. And if they have a good tournament, they could play themselves into the dance.
Yeah, Andy, and this is one of the games that I want to talk to you about on Thursday.
Okay.
And we can get right into it.
Let's do it.
Minnesota, Michigan State. Like we just said, Michigan State kind of punched their ticket. Their last 4 bye in right now. So they have kind of punched their ticket. But if they would lose this game, it would mean
disaster.
It would be detrimental to them. They are a 6.5 point favorite right now over Minnesota. I do believe they get the job done, but this is in Minneapolis, Andy. The Big Ten tournament is hosted.
A little bit of a curveball
At the Target Center, or whatever they call it, Timberwolves Stadium. But it's in Minnesota, so they should have a crowd there.
They should.
But do they really have a crowd there?
Do they really? Yeah,
I bet Michigan State travels pretty well for basketball. I know that I see a lot of green when they're here in the Cornhusker State, but no, give me Michigan State here to prevail. The one that I really wanted to talk to you, Andy, about is the 5:30 matchup, Ohio State versus Iowa.
Ooh, that's because both those teams need to win.
They need to win.
They're hungry teams.
They're hungry teams. Iowa's one of the last 4 out, according to bracketology right now. They're not giving Ohio State much of a chance to get in. They would have to win 2 games at least to get in. But Iowa right now, if they could win this game and then somehow get a matchup against somebody else that really propels them, they need to win. So I believe this is on the line for them. They have Ohio State as a 1.5 favorite right now. I think this is a game that Iowa can get.
You think? And what's their point spread?
1.5 towards Ohio State.
1.5 towards Ohio State, because they're getting Ohio State, the Buckeyes, and it's probably just a lot of name recognition goes into that.
No doubt.
And being a tournament team and all those things. I think you're seeing a lot more publicity about Ohio State than you are Iowa right now, and that's why they're the 1.5 favorite.
No, and you kind of got to go with that. And plus the way that they ended the year on that 4-game winning streak, and he beat Rutgers, Michigan, Nebraska, and Michigan State, two teams that we just already talked about.
Yep.
But I just kind of like Iowa.
Here.
They beat Michigan State in February, I believe, at Michigan State. I believe that goes a long way. And then they have wins against Northwestern and Penn State as of recent. The only 2 losses they have in that span are both to Illinois, who is obviously the second best team in the Big Ten at this point. So I like the Iowa Hawkeyes here to take down the game on Thursday, to really try and punch their ticket into March Madness. So that's the game that I really want to talk to you about in the Big Ten. Is I believe Iowa has an edge here that not a lot of people are talking about. No,
they're really not, because they would rather talk about Ohio State. It's a little bit sexier thing to talk about.
For sure.
And Fran, I mean, the Fighting Frannies. He's kind of a grumpy guy.
He is.
It's not much fun to talk about.
He's kind of like Kirk
around.
Ferentz.
He kind of is. Just a little fiery is all.
Yeah.
Purdue, plus 100. Is there any kind of value there for you? Because that's everyone's like, it's a foregone conclusion that the Boilermakers are going to take this thing down.
Yeah.
Since that loss to Nebraska, they have been on fire. Is this a spot where, hey, it's a small plus money bet. Take your plus money bet and be happy with it.
Yeah.
You're low risk, low reward.
I do believe that it's probably the safest bet in the Big Ten right now.
And it's still plus money.
It's plus 100. The only thing that scares me, Andy, is that it's March. Purdue, the last 3 or 4 years has been in this exact spot.
I know.
In this exact spot.
They have.
Now, do I believe that they can win the Big Ten tournament? Obviously they can.
Yeah.
My big question marks are going to come in the following weeks in the big dance. I don't think that they're going to be able to move very far. I think they start calling Edey a lot more conservative in the tournament, letting them play a little bit more. Their last game, Purdue outshot its free throws 43-8. in their last game.
Okay.
They are giving him calls. I believe it's
not going to happen in the tournament.
It's not going to happen in the tournament. I think they're going to get called a little closer in this tournament as well. So, but
the Shaka Edie defense is
the
the Shaka Zach.
The thing,
Zach Edie.
the thing about Zach Edey, Andy, is he gets fouled every time he gets the ball, which
he's 7'4".
I understand
huge.
that he gets fouled every time he gets the ball. He also fouls every time in the paint as well. If they called it like it needs to be called, he would be out of the game in the first half. So
it's a two-way street here, huh?
It is a two-way street on it. He's a foul prodigy. He gets fouled and fouls every time down the floor. But no, I believe that Purdue takes this down, barring anything crazy. So that plus 100 bet is probably something that people should look at.
Yeah, I mean, I like risk reward, but I like rewards better. And Purdue in the Big Ten tournament, I just think that they're going to get it done. Of course, I wouldn't call you crazy if you're leaning more towards Illinois and you like the plus 280 odds a little bit better. Fine, so be it. I just think Purdue's going to get it done in the Big Ten tournament. Do you have a dark horse that you're kind of looking at? And I'm not going to give you Illinois. That is not an option for a dark horse.
Andy, the crazy thing that I am going through right now is we're talking about the Big Ten tournament, and where are the Badgers?
They're 5th overall.
Yeah.
They're, plus 1,400.
Isn't that absolutely crazy, Andy, that we're talking about the Big Ten tournament and we haven't talked about the Wisconsin Badgers at all? With good reason, Andy. Losing to Purdue by 8. Their only last win is against Rutgers. Lost to Illinois, but they're still in these games, Andy.
They are.
And they're still, I think this is a dark horse if you've ever talked about one in this tournament, is somebody that has huge plus side in a team that you can knows that you can play with all these teams, Andy. At a plus 1,400, I think it's just as good as outlier as Michigan State in Nebraska.
Okay.
And they get a game against Maryland, which I think they should take down on Thursday. So, if there's an outlier that I think should have a little bit more respect, I think it's Wisconsin.
They have a nice blend of upperclassmen. A lot of juniors make up their starting five or in their starting five, along with some very talented freshmen. Maybe that mix with those freshmen, now they've grown up a little bit and they can kind of play more like the veterans that they have turned into. Now it's the end of the season, but just every chance I felt that Wisconsin had to kind of make a statement, they tripped.
No doubt
and right
about
now, one of their best wins is against Nebraska. Isn't that crazy?
Early in the year. The thing that really just stands out with me, the Badgers, and we can get off it because obviously we're out of time, but they only lost 8 to Purdue. They lost by 8 to Illinois and then lost by 6 to Purdue earlier in the year.
Yep. They're in these games.
They are in these games. They are Wisconsin. They can do it. I'm just saying plus 1,400 is a very good odds to just sprinkle a little bit on just because the Badgers can play with these teams.
If you're crazy enough to bet the 750 Nebraska, you should be crazy enough to bet the 1,400 Wisconsin Badgers. Okay,
exactly.
It's worth a sprinkle at least.
It's worth a sprinkle.
All righty, well, you heard the horn. That means we're up against it, but let's take a minute to recognize one of our fabulous partners, and that is the Nebraska Brewing Company. World class in every glass. Gibran, I'm talking about glasses of beer. See the little pun there, the play on words?
Love that.
Love that. We live for puns. We're a sports broadcast.
Live for beer, too.
Nebraska Brewing Company, world class in every glass. Don't go anywhere. This is WTL. Welcome back, everybody, to WTL. Where's the Line? Nebraska's first and only sports betting show. I'm your host, Andy Klesson, joined by
Gibran.
The Parlay Pounder.
You got it.
Oh, boy, and it's March Madness.
It is.
We are knocking down these conferences left and right. We're getting you the best edge there possibly could be. We talked about the Big East. We talked about the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I think we got to talk about the SEC.
Yeah, this is loaded, Andy. Love it.
This really is a lot of fun. If you're talking about just your overall odds and it being wide open, this is the tournament. Big Ten, we talked about it at length. It's Purdue and everybody else.
Boilermakers and then everybody else.
Illinois is kind of in the mix, but there's not a whole lot of people picking that or very.
It's the Boilermakers in the Big Ten.
Yep.
And same thing with the Big East. It's all UConn, defending national champions, regular season champions.
There you go.
You'd be crazy to put anything else on either two against those two.
Yeah, and even Creighton's kind of an afterthought in the Big East.
Yeah.
So there's some of the odds that we're talking about with that. But here in the SEC, your Southeastern Conference, you have leading the way is Tennessee at a plus 145.
Yeah.
Auburn plus 270. Kentucky's in the 3 seed, the 3-hole there at a plus 270. And then you have Alabama. Excuse me, that's Auburn. Auburn's at a plus 270. Kentucky at a plus 430. Alabama at a plus 430. I believe I'm getting these numbers off of FanDuel, so give or take, wherever you're at. Just giving you an idea. And then it kind of falls off. Then you have Florida there at a plus 1,800. And South Carolina, who had a really nice season, kind of surprised that South Carolina is so far down there at a plus 4,500 to win the Southeastern Conference.
The whole thing, Andy, is the reason that they're so far down there is about all those teams you just mentioned. These are all top 25 teams. Yeah. Tennessee, Auburn, Kentucky, Alabama. That's so crazy to have that many good teams in your conference tournament.
There's got to be a fall off somewhere.
There's got to be a fall off. So, the way that this is stacked up, Andy, the reason that this is so close and that Tennessee isn't just running away with it, days after winning their SEC championship, number 1 seeded Tennessee lost at home to Kentucky.
Yeah.
The Volunteers are the favorite to take home the hardware. Like you said, second time in 3 years, but they have serious competition, and I really like the bubble teams here, Andy. South Carolina, I love them. And Mississippi State and Texas A&M too. These are teams that are hungry.
Texas A&M.
They're crazy, Andy. But this is a stacked conference, Andy.
It is.
But you really got to look at the value that Kentucky's bringing home right now. Plus 430, Andy, for a team that can do it, that just beat Tennessee.
Yep.
And is the blue blood of all blue bloods.
Yeah, Kentucky, the Wildcats here.
Yeah.
They're not only arguably the hottest team in the SEC conference, they might be the hottest team in the nation.
Yeah.
You mentioned there's so much writing on that game at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Home crowd, Rick Barnes, and everything that was going on there. And they just couldn't get by the Wildcats. And it seems like, every other episode we talked about one of their upcoming matchups because it was always ranked and a lot of fun and ESPN, primetime matchup. And those are the games we kind of like to focus on that draw the most action. But the Wildcats were always catching so much shade all season, and just up to this point.
Well, they have 8 losses.
8 losses.
Yeah.
How bad could that be?
Yeah, and they're tied for second in the conference with only 5 losses in conference.
Yeah.
But so does South Carolina, Auburn, Kentucky, and Alabama. All have 5 losses in the SEC tournament, Andy. But the body of work for Kentucky, like you said, got really good at the bottom half of this season, Andy. Sparking off wins against Tennessee, like we said, Alabama, Auburn, beating all of these guys. And like I said, Alabama beat them 117-95. Really just put it to them, Andy.
Spanked them.
And I just love this team right now. Antonio Reeves is a huge part of it, averaging
super freshman, right?
Yep, 20 points a game, shooting over 50% from the field. This guy is a monster. I love
He's
Kentucky
shooting
here.
53% from 3-point land.
Yeah,
I mean that's pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy.
I'm just looking at the Ken Palm stat numbers right now. Wow.
Yeah, and they are slotted into a 3 seed in March Madness right now, Andy. They could possibly get all the way to a 2 seed, and I love it. I love Kentucky in this tournament.
What do the Volunteers need to do to secure that number 1 overall seed? Because right now they're kind of, depending on which bracketologist you want to look at, they're at a 1, 2, maybe even a 3 or a 4 seed.
Well,
it's pretty crazy.
The third number 1 seed.
Number 1 seed is the Volunteers.
I don't know if there's a lot they can do, especially
to knock that
if
off
Purdue does work in the Big Ten tournament. They're the top overall seed. They have less losses, all that kind of stuff. I think that's probably going to happen. Purdue plus 100, take down the Big Ten. I think that happens. UConn's the same way, I believe.
They're going to number one seed.
They're going to take it. If Tennessee really shows that they can battle back and beat this Kentucky team, meaning that Kentucky makes it all the way to the finals to them.
Most rankings have them 5th in the nation, so you can see an easy path for them to be one of the top 4 seeds. And they have one of the finalists in Dalton Connect.
Yeah.
A player of the year, not just defensive player of the year or comeback player. Well, he's player of the year. And he did win SEC player of the year already. He's already got that under his belt.
Yeah. No, Andy, I just think they're kind of slotted as, a number 1 seed, especially if they win at least 2 games in this tournament. So I love the Volunteers, but I really like Kentucky to take down this whole tournament and really push it to a 2 seed in the NCAA.
Well, that's really where a lot of people are picking. They're either picking Kentucky or Tennessee.
Yeah.
You like the Gators for whatever reasons why, and they are gaining a lot of traction as far as being a dark horse. Everyone's forgot about them, and they have, I guess you could say, fantastic odds.
Yeah.
If you're leaning towards the game. Is there a team, you mentioned A&M earlier, is there a dark horse, a sleeper pick that you really like?
Like I was saying about Mississippi State and Texas A&M, Andy, is that they're both on the bubble right now, so they're dangerous teams in my eyes. Both of them have games on Thursday. Mississippi State is against LSU. They're a 4.5-point favorite. I believe they take care of business there and cover that spread, so I love Mississippi State on Thursday against LSU.
Okay.
On the same token,
hey, that's a brand name.
Yeah, Texas A&M, 4.5-point favor against Ole Miss. Now, this is kind of something that I thought was kind of weird because Ole Miss has a good body of work this year, winning 20 games.
Yeah.
And Texas A&M is only 9-9 in the SEC. But like I said, they have a lot more to play for. They are on the bubble. Texas A&M, I believe, wins this game, covers this game. So take Texas A&M and Mississippi State both on Thursday. I believe they both get their games.
What about the Auburn Tigers?
Yeah.
I just can't get away from this team. I really like their coach. He's been through it, been fired a couple times, but he got fired for the right reasons. He was just a little too blatant, bringing too many of those good players into his past jobs.
Yeah.
13-5 SEC record, 24-7 overall, and the Tigers are number 2. They are second in the conference standings right now, but nobody, absolutely. I'm trying to find articles on them, doing this show. Nobody's talking about the Tigers.
No, and you really don't because it seems that they win the games they're supposed to, lose the games that they don't.
They've only lost 7 games.
Exactly, but losses to Tennessee, Kentucky, a later loss to Florida, Alabama, Mississippi State. Beat Alabama at home.
Yeah,
that's probably one of their best wins.
Rival.
One of their best games of the year. But I really don't think that they have much chance when they're up against the top echelon of this tournament, which is Tennessee and Kentucky and Alabama for that sake.
So, you're not really going to have to twist my arm to take the Kentucky plus 400 over an Auburn at plus 260 because they have the second best odds as well.
I just don't see any value in that odds.
Is that where you're leaning towards that?
I just don't see any value in Auburn. It's low odds, and I believe that there's 2 better teams below them with better odds, is my outlook with Auburn.
Would one of those teams be Alabama to plus 500?
Yeah, Alabama, I believe, is the 3rd best team in this tournament.
Oh, wow.
They can go on a run. They play a really good brand of basketball. Like I said, they have wins over a couple of these teams already. But I think overall, Kentucky's your best bet. Plus 430 is great odds for the Wildcats with just coming off a win of this best team in Tennessee.
It is amazing. Kentucky does have 23 wins on the season for a season that
for a down year.
Yeah, for a down year. And both Alabama and Florida have 20-win seasons as well.
For sure. No, this is an outstanding conference,
this
Andy.
is a really fun conference.
And that's what I'm saying is if you want to get real good odds, I would even have Florida as a better, long shot odd than picking Auburn at plus 230. You throw some on Florida at plus 1,800.
I knew you'd say that.
Or even the Gamecocks, plus 4,500, like you said. The steep drop-off, but no. I believe your best odds here, far and away, are Kentucky and Alabama at plus 430. You know these teams can win.
Mm-hmm.
You know that they're going to be there in March. So they're hungry now, and they want to get a really nice seed in the NCAA tournament, especially Kentucky getting all the way to a 2 seed.
Yeah, hard to look past the Kentucky Wildcats, and that's why we kind of opened with them, and we're probably ending with. Real quick, you did mention A&M. They're only 9-9 in conference.
Yeah, no, Andy. Like I said, the only reason I'm talking about these teams is because they're on the bubble and they have to do work in these tournaments. It's the same way across the board for all these tournaments. There's 2 or 3 teams that are dangerous in these conference tournaments because they need to win. The teams that we talk about, Tennessee, Auburn, Kentucky, Alabama, pretty much even Florida and South Carolina are already in the tournament.
Yeah, I think so.
So we don't have to worry about them playing hard in these. We think they will.
Yeah.
We think they will. But if they get matched up against a angry dog in Mississippi State and Texas A&M, anything can happen. So that's why you see them right there as well.
All righty, well, let's take a minute to recognize one of our fabulous partners, and that's the Nebraska Brewing Company. We've been enjoying a Bavarian wheat beer known as the EOS. The unfiltered EOS is a fresh, sweeter style Hefeweizen, thanks to its notes of vanilla and nutmeg. Nebraska Brewing Company, world class in every glass. Don't go anywhere. This is WTL. And welcome back, everybody, to WTL. Where's the line? Nebraska's first and only sports betting show. I'm your host, Andy Klassen, joined by
Jabron.
Oh, the Parlay Pounder.
You got it. We're back.
And we are talking conference tournaments, March Madness. 'Tis the season. We talk a little Big East, Big Ten, of course. SEC, got to. So many brand names over there. I think that's kind of the tournament to keep your eye on anyway.
No doubt about it. SEC looks like the funnest tournament to watch this year for sure.
And now we got to move on over to the Big 12. Ooh. Some name brands. We got our slate loaded up here. And we're going to have at the top here, a 4 versus 5 matchup, Texas Tech, BYU.
Yeah.
We have the number 1 overall seed, Houston. They look so good right now.
Very good. Only lost 3 games all year. All in the Big 12, though.
Yep. All to Big 12 teams. Very good point. Taking on the Horned Frogs. That's a 2 o'clock tip over on ESPN.
Yeah.
Then you have a little bit of an upset in the bunny bracket. Well, second round bracket anyway.
Yeah.
Kansas State knocks off Texas. So now they're going to take on the 2 seed Iowa State. Iowa State's been sitting there and waiting.
Yeah.
That's a 6 o'clock tip off on ESPN2. And speaking of upsets, coming out of the bunny bracket, Cincinnati, the Bearcats had to knock off West Virginia in the play-in game, and then they just went ahead and took care of business last night, knocking off Kansas. Yeah. So now they're going to play 8:30 Central Standard Time on ESPN or ESPN2 versus the 3 seed Baylor. And boy, do the Bearcats have to be playing with a ton of confidence.
Yeah, they do, Andy. That was such a crazy game with Kansas. Obviously, 2 of their best guys out, Hunter Dickinson and McCall Jr. But,
Kansas hasn't been playing that, to Kansas standards, it just seems like a lot of those guys had been in kind of a slump or a funk last 4 or 5 games.
No doubt about it. And when you get injuries, you got to kind of save them for that tournament. You know that Kansas is still going to be probably right around. They were slated as a 4 before this game. They'll probably go down to maybe a 5 or a 6 seed now.
They were a 6 seed in the Big 12 tournament.
Right.
Jeez. Come on.
But the Big 12 right now has allotted 9 spots as of now in bracketology.
Oh, okay.
So we're talking about 8 teams that are going at it tomorrow. It seems that 9 teams are going to make it from the Big 12. So writing's on the wall there for Kansas. But the first game that we wanted to talk about, Andy, is obviously that BYU Texas game, 11:30 on ESPN2.
Texas Tech.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
BYU I think is one of the hottest teams, if not in college basketball, but in the Big 12 for sure.
They're one of your better odds. You know, the number 4 overall seed.
Yeah.
They're sitting at a plus 1,000 on a bunch of different books.
Yeah.
Just right behind Baylor, who's at a plus 800, plus 900, depending on where you're looking. So they're definitely slated right there. They're above Kansas. And that makes sense. I see why the odds makers made that move.
But no, they just a team that I believe can play with everybody in the Big 12. They've shown that. They have a win over Kansas, a win over TCU, and a win over Oklahoma State in their last 5, Andy. They have 23 wins on the year, 10 in conference. I just believe that I think they're a much better team than this Texas Tech Red Raider team, and they're getting 1.5 points. I believe that's a lock for Thursday. So I would take BYU early in the morning on Thursday.
You know, it's still a 4 versus 5 matchup, and Texas Tech's been resting. You know, they didn't have to play. BYU just had to play, that second round.
For sure.
And take down the 12 overall seed UCF.
Yeah. No, I just think it's a better time for BYU right now. Texas Tech, I believe, is kind of they're a good team. We're talking about a 22-9 college basketball team.
And Texas Tech has a plus 1,800 to take down the tournament right now.
Right.
And so way better odds.
They are way better odds.
A better seed.
They're a better seed, but I still like BYU. I think they're coming in. They're favored for a reason. They're going to win this game.
All right, well, let's just move on right down the bracket there then. And you can't get by them. You have to talk about them. That is the Houston Cougars taking the 8th seed on TCU. Obviously, Houston's going to be a big favorite here. But much like I was talking about Purdue still has some plus money to win the Big Ten tournament.
For sure.
I can still find Houston at a plus 100 on FanDuel.
Yeah, and that's crazy because I thought it was going to be minus money on pretty much everywhere.
It pretty much is.
Yeah.
It pretty much is. You got to look. You got to look around. DraftKings, I think, is a minus 140. BetMGM, depending on where you're at, what book you're using, all that good stuff. You're looking at minus money on a lot of places, but I think FanDuel still has them at a plus 100. I think I like Houston. Just take that. Now that Kansas is out of it, I don't know why I put so much stock into Kansas. I've been dogging them all year.
Yeah.
But now with them out of the way, I feel like this is just Houston's tournament, and I still like the plus money.
It is, Andy. But I think the most value play, Houston is very good. They should be nominated to win this. They're going to be a number 1 overall seed, most likely. But I love the Baylor plus money, Andy, because they are a good team right now, 11th in the nation. They only lost by 4-2 or 6-2 Houston. I just think that they have the best plus money out there for a team. The other team you got to look at is Iowa State.
Yeah, I like Iowa
They
State.
Did beat Houston in the regular season, but it was at Iowa State. I believe that those are your two, if you're looking for plus money or if you're looking for value, Iowa State and Baylor are your only two outliers that can bring home some money for you.
Well, yeah, you're looking at Baylor at a plus 800, plus 900, plus 650. All these different books here. Iowa State a little bit slimmer, right? Plus 400. I'm seeing a lot of 400s and plus 300 over at Caesars. And Iowa State's done it before.
Yeah.
We saw that graphic, watched the end of that Kansas-Cincinnati game. Congratulations to the Bearcats.
Yeah.
But Iowa State's right there with 4 conference championships, right? Tournament champions.
For sure, yeah. Kansas had 6. Iowa State had 4. The thing that scares me about Iowa State, Andy, is this game today against Kansas State.
Yeah.
You don't want to play a team like Kansas State, in these quarterfinals because they just beat Texas the night before.
Wildcats always beat Texas.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Football, basketball, they got them.
Texas were the reigning Big 12 tournament champions, and Kansas State just kind of took it to them, and they could do the same thing to Iowa State. I am very fearful of Kansas State taking down Iowa State today. So
yeah, well, I need to see this updated line if you're going to talk about odds and who's where's your value at.
Yeah,
Cincinnati before they knocked off Kansas plus 7,000.
Yeah,
plus 7,000. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit better now, but after what you saw from the Bearcats, are you thinking, hey, maybe here's a flyer, maybe here's a dark horse?
I don't believe that they can hang with Baylor. I believe the only reason that they got past Kansas, 2 best players out.
They're hurt. Injuries.
I think, if anything, Andy, this this will lower the odds for Baylor to win this conference tournament.
Sure, you won't get as good as odds.
You won't get as good as odds because I believe that they are the third best team in the Big 12. So I believe you will see Baylor at a plus 400, plus 300 before the day ends.
They already were at like a plus 600.
Yeah, and I believe that they will win this game. Yeah, sorry, I was kind of skipping over it, but Kansas State beat Iowa State to end the year. They beat them, at K-State 65-58. So I just believe they might have a little bit of their number right now.
Yeah.
And that Iowa State's going to be a little bit nervous playing a team they just lost to in the conference tournament. So it depends on what you're getting for Kansas State, but maybe look at that money line for that game at 6 p.m. today in Kansas City.
Okay, so real quick, we've been breezing over it all episode long, and we talk about it every day. But for folks that don't know, when we say plus 200 bet, plus money, what does that mean, Jabron?
That would mean you would have to, when you're getting plus money, you got the advantage of getting more payback. So you're sitting at a plus 200, you would have to pay in $100, but you would get back 200.
Okay, so what if it's a minus 110 bet?
Then you would have to put up $110 to win back that 100.
To win, and that $10, that's the juice. That's the juice. That's what you got to pay FanDuel or DraftKings or Warhorse.
Yeah, or Warhorse.
Whoever you want to, whoever is your bookie. But those books, they do a pretty good job of always taking a little bit in there, taking that juice, taking that vigorish.
No doubt.
Did we miss anything with this Big 12 tournament?
Just with the Big 12, the only thing
you had Kansas. Kansas is only a 6 seed going into this, but they're still a blue blood. You got to believe in them. But they had the exact same odds. The last odds I looked at before those games tipped off on Wednesday, the exact same odds as BYU to take the whole thing down.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody knew that these two big guys weren't going to play for Kansas, McCullough Jr. and Hunter Dickinson.
Yep.
They're going to be back for the tournament, so maybe look at that, a little bit of value for Kansas in the tournament,
Future.
Especially with getting their two best players back. But no, just a couple outliers for Thursday's games in the Big 12. I like BYU, and maybe sprinkle a little bit on Kansas State, especially if they get a big spread against Iowa State. I don't hold a lot of faith in Cincinnati taking down Baylor.
No.
Baylor's still upper echelon of all of college basketball. I just don't see Cincinnati putting two games together against top tier.
Great point. They had to win that bunny bracket against West Virginia. Then they had to turn around and play Kansas. That's an emotional win no matter what. In Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
Mobile T Arena. And now they're supposed to go 3 days in a row and take Baylor, who's just been resting the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah, no way.
And you really flip their Big 12 records beyond each other. Baylor's 11-7 in Big 12 Big 12, and Cincinnati's only won 7 games, 8 now with the win over Kansas in the Big 12. So give me Baylor. Sprinkle a little bit on Kansas State if that line gets too outrageous. BYU in Houston on Thursday.
I really do agree with your Kansas State keeping it close with Iowa State. I like Baylor taking care of business and knocking off Cincinnati, and I'm not going to get away from the Cougars. Houston will roll. They will be your champions, and yes, you are starting to see a lot of minus 110, minus 105
no doubt.
To win the tournament. But, stay versatile. Check out different books. I still like that plus 100.
I do too, Andy. Houston, definitely the best team in this conference and a big favorite to win the whole dance.
And we will talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, that'll about do it for us this week, folks. Be sure to follow us over on ESPN Tri-City Radio and their Facebook page. We're constantly putting out short videos and the like. We're also on X, or formerly known as Twitter. If you haven't given us a follow, or is that a subscription, or do you sub in Twitter? How does that work?
Just follow us is the only thing.
Just follow us. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. That has been a lot of fun. We got feature-length, full-length videos, YouTube Shorts, anything and everything. We also have YouTube has a fun little metric where we can engage with the audience and do trivia questions and polls and things of that nature. So it's always good to get the pulse of WTL Nation. And I'll tell you what, they're usually on the right side of things.
No doubt.
As far as picking winners go.
Got a lot of smart listeners out there.
You're also over on TikTok, aren't you?
Yeah, make sure you follow us on TikTok at WTL Sports Betting. Usually putting out picks before primetime games games, especially on the weekends.
Hey, and you killed it with UFC.
Yeah.
$2.99.
$2.99.
That
We're
was
waiting for
huge.
$300.
That was huge.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
For Jabron, the Parlay Pounder, I'm Andy Klassen. Thank you for listening. This has been WTL.